right, beautiful people. Today we're talking about getting you a job at the place that you want to work for, because getting a job anywhere at any point in your life stinks. Like, it is no fun. So we're gonna go through like probably 5 good recommendations so that you can be in a good shape for your career and getting that good step. So this is specifically for people who are maybe in college or early career, and the advice should be targeted to that, but the concept should be the same. So let's talk about what it's like being transgender and going through the recruiting process. It's weird because you're like showing up as yourself, and depending on how far you are in your transition, it can be really, really daunting to have one additional layer on top of that. Trust me, I know, I went through that process. I transitioned and then went through the interview process. And for me, it was a lot. And at every point in the time, every step I was thinking about it. So I think maybe we can go through a few different strategies on what you can do so that you're more successful in the process. And I think the first one is around resilience. We talk about this on the channel a bunch, and I think it's really important in this process. You're going to get the same position. You're going to have to put out more effort and energy, and that's just how it is. And in our world, that is a reality that I think you have to accept, and that's fine. If you can build that resilience and have your eye on the prize with the focus that you want to get to that specific target or that company or that industry. Do you want to go into finance or consulting or business? These are all the things that I do. So obviously there's a million other different careers. You need to be resilient through the process. Create a clear, and that comes to the second one, create a clear plan of how you're going to build your skills to get to that point. And you should be doing this with your counselor. Your schools should have these resources available for you. So really lean into them. You're going to have to do extra work that some of maybe your other classmates wouldn't. And if not, you've just done a bunch of extra work and now you're prepared for a foundational start to your life, which can be really, really good. So the first one is resilience. The second one is having a plan and working through that and saying, I'm gonna get a lot of rejection. As a trans person, we feel rejected on a decent amount, and I think it's really, really important that you recognize that none of these rejections are personal, and they're not about your identity, and they're not about so many other things. We don't need to, in our heads, be creating these stories about our identities being a roadblock for us. Somehow we need to think of that identity as a strength as we walk into these. I'm a trans person. I'm a gender non-conforming person. I'm confident. Maybe not. Certainly I struggle with confidence, but maybe confidence isn't a thing, but you show up and that's something that you want to work on, and you find a mentor. I mentor a few people, and it's really important that you find people to support you through this process. There are lots of transgender, non-conforming, LGBTQ plus people out there that want to help you. So you need to go find those resources. If you're working in the tech space, go to Trans Tech. If you're working, there's Out in Tech. If you're a queer person, there's so many options for you. Just jump on it. People want to support you through this process. And that's probably maybe the 3rd/4th. I'm not sure exactly where we are, but that's probably the 3rd recommendation, which is you need to find somebody who is going to be a good mentor for you through this process, who can give you that extra set of review on your resume, on your cover letter, on your game plan for getting a job. Right now, we probably just went through the last recruiting cycle, so the next recruiting cycle is going to be starting. and it starts in December, and you have 6 months to really get the ducks in a row to make sure that you're successful. I think the last two pieces I kind of want to touch base, they're similar, and it's you need to start building those foundations. Don't let somebody else tell you that you can't do that. If somebody puts a block up, and for example, let's say you want to go work in Wall Street and you want to work on an investment bank, that's hard to get in as it is, and you have to have a lot of foundational items. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to focus on that. If that's like the direction that you want to go, maybe you can focus on building those foundational items over a period of time. And I guess that comes to that second part of that one, which is over time. Like, you might have an objective that you want to be in consulting, and maybe your first job out of high school or college is not in that direction, but the life and the race is long, and you have many opportunities to build sequentially on your skills. So if you're going through this process and you're going through the recruiting process, think about like, how can you say, okay, well, I'm not really so concerned about this specific interview because my career is really long, and you want to put a lot of preparation. You want to be prepared for the interview. You want to make sure that you're prepared for case studies and all of the different task, interview questions, behavioral questions. You want to make sure that you're prepared for all that stuff, right? But at the same time, like, you want to take a bigger picture and say, in the long term, I really want to be in this general field. I want to be in the finance field. I want to be in the health services field. I want to, do something else. So, I think that's pretty much a summary of a few different ideas that you can use to help get these. Again, try to build those foundational experiences. They start small, and you're doing very small things. Maybe you're doing it free, part of school, to get that experience. And then your next one's an internship. And then your next one is that first full-time entry job. Or maybe there's an intermediate step. I mean, I was 30 years old and I did an internship that was designed for college students so that I could get my a foot in the direction of finance. So sometimes my situation was different, but I was trying to go from one industry to another industry, and sometimes that can be challenging. So sometimes in order to go from here, you might have a lot of experience, but you have to take a step as long as you're moving in the direction. And maybe that's like tip number 8, or I don't know however far we are, but make sure you're always taking a step in all the different activities that you're doing professionally. Make sure you're always taking a step towards your desired goal. And over the years, it will really add up, and it will add up into something really big for you. So I hope these career tips help as you go through the recruiting process. Ask your questions below. I would love to reply and provide any advice specifically for transgender nonconforming as you go through the process. I mean, it's I think the last maybe tip number 9 on that note is like, go into these are people on the other side of the table, right? They're people that you can relate to at the end of the day, and they just want to hear, can you help them with the company and the role, and are you interested in that direction? So just treat them like people, like everybody else. And I think that's, maybe I should have started with that one in the beginning, but that's probably the best piece of advice as you go from a trans perspective, is like, trans shouldn't matter. And I think that if you can get rid of that concept in your head and saying, oh, I'm trans, they're gonna judge me, and all that stuff, like, get that out of your head. That might be a reality. There might be pieces of it that come in, but it doesn't help you in this process. Think of everybody as your friends, as, you know, maybe you have another LGBTQ friend who is super supportive. Think of them like that. Like, just imagine your friend Freddie. Yeah, that's an amazing name, right? Imagine your friend Freddie just like standing there, and he's the one talking to you. So just be yourself. So that's the last one. Be yourself. And don't negotiate down for a culture that isn't gonna fit. So that's number 10. We're at 10 already. Oh wow. Yeah, don't negotiate yourself. Make sure to do research on the company. Talk to a few other employees. You want to get into a place that is going to be supportive and progressive. There are definitely many companies that are supportive of LGBTQ plus humans, so try to focus on those companies. Generally the bigger companies are very progressive, but there's a lot of other tech companies that are very progressive. It really just depends on where you are in the country. And that's tip number 11. We're like all the way up at 11. Can you believe that? So tip number 11 is don't be afraid to go outside of the bubble of wherever you are from. So like for me, I'm from Cincinnati and Louisville, and I wouldn't have the same opportunities as I do here in New York. So put yourself in a different environment. Again, think long term. Where do you need to be to thrive at what you want to do? So think some of the bigger cities, it might be a knockdown in the short term, but in the long term, you'll take steps up and you'll be at the position that you want when you get there. So you'll be at the position that you want when you get there. That's deep, right? No, that's circular logic. So anyways, that's all I'm gonna share. There's 11 tips. Ask your questions. Would love to help and schedule any kind of one-on-one sessions to help y'all. So that's all.